Giants come out of the bye and defeat the Houston Texans by a score of 24-16. And this was a pretty typical New York Giant game where, I felt like the Giants basically were in control. Really, they played to the score. The defense was mostly good. They had, some difficulties, when there was a little bit of a cushion. And that's just kind of what you see, where the Giants are on the other side of that, where when the Giants are trailing and they have just given up a touchdown or points, like they'll come back and they'll, respond. But the Giants played a good football game. It wasn't pretty. And it's another one-score win technically, as the Texans got a late field goal to make it an 8-point game. Reminiscent to, I guess, the Bear game. But it's just funny that the Giants only win one-score games. And this was kind of what you'd expect. Now, Xavier McKinney, unfortunately, hurt his hand on an ATV during the bye week. He was on vacation, and he is going to be out for at least 4 weeks, maybe more, honestly. And so that's not great. And that's not great by Xavier McKinney. To do that, to put himself in jeopardy, to hurt the team like that. And look, he's a good dude, but still, you got to be smarter than that. And it's kind of unacceptable, really. And so Dane Belton and Jason Pinnock were definitely asked to step up, and they did. And they did, and would it have been better with McKinney? Yeah, but Belton gets an interception. Pinnock gets 1.5 sacks. So that was good to see. Dexter Lawrence has been an absolute stud this season. He has progressively gotten better since his rookie year in 2019, and Dexter Lawrence had a sack. He was just really, really good. Davis Mills, ends up putting up over 300 yards, but that's a bit misleading. Davis Mills really struggled. And I think, for the most part, good job by the defense. There were some frustrating things. Play calling, really on both sides. The offense, I feel like it was a little bit too run heavy. And Saquon Barkley is a big story of this game. He rushes for 35 carries, 152 yards, and a touchdown. They were pounding the rock. And the Texans are not a good run defense. But I just felt like, you could have made it a little bit easier for yourselves, but that's the way they preferred it. And the Giants, it's part of the reason why they never get 30 points. This is a game where they easily could have if they passed it a little bit more. Because when they did pass the ball, it was pretty effective. Daniel Jones, only threw the ball 17 times. He was 13 for 17, 197 and 2 touchdowns. Jones was pretty good. There was really only one bad throw that Jones made. I think it was intended for Slayton. Other than that, he was pretty on the money. Kenny Golladay returns, and just when you think it can't get any worse, it does. Kenny Golladay, there were 2 passes in his direction. One of them, I wish that he gave a little bit more of an effort, but you know what? I understand his arms were fully extended. He didn't make the catch. Fine. The second one is completely a joke. In stride, right at him. And would have been a nice gain at the end of the first, I believe it was end of the first half, if memory serves me correct. And he just drops it. And I don't think we saw Kenny Golladay again, and deservedly so. Darius Slayton is clearly your number 1 receiver, and he had a really nice touchdown. It was a 54-yard touchdown for Darius Slayton. He's a big play receiver, and it's just crazy to me that Slayton almost was traded. Well, that's one thing, I guess. But even after he wasn't traded, I believe he was a healthy scratch early in the season. He was inactive and completely buried in the depth chart, which is kind of insane, considering that Darius Slayton has been a pretty productive NFL receiver since he came into the league. So Slayton, good to see. Isaiah Hodgins, who was a pickup from the Bills. So, Joe Shane and company know Hodgins. He ends up kind of replacing Golladay, and he makes a couple of catches, 41 yards. One of them was a 26-yard reception. So Hodgins, the Giants are so thin at receiver that you play well like that, and you're going to, have a chance, to get in the mix. So Wandale Robinson was quiet. He had a couple of catches, at least one. It was one or two. One was on a third down conversion. The other one might have been as well. But either way, Wandale Wandell kind of messed up on a run. He went -5 yards on a running play that took the Giants out of field goal range. But I thought Fabian Moreau struggled today. But Adoree Jackson, I thought, was really good. Punt return wise, Adoree Jackson was kind of the punt returner. But you're just hoping for nothing going on there. I thought Jamie Gillen struggled. We know he has a great leg, but in terms of, there's not much touch. And I thought Gillen wasn't great. Gano wasn't really asked to do much until he made a late field goal, which was pretty big at the time. It was a 49er field goal to extend it from an 8-point lead to an 11-point lead. But it was just a classic sort of New York Giant game, and that results in a win. It's another 7-2. And I think in terms of the Giants, if you can beat the Lions next week, and I think the Lions, they have a 2-game winning streak. They will be a step up from the Texans. Now I know that's kind of an obvious statement, but truly, like the Lions, they will not be easy at all. Like I said, they've won 2 in a row. Ever since their bye week, they've been playing a lot better, and that won't be easy. But if you can win that game, and I think that at that point, making the playoffs really has to be a near certainty. With the state of the NFC, it really has to be a near certainty. But as far as this game is concerned, the Giants, start out really well, defensively and offensively. And it should be noted that a couple of players returned from injury, some making a bigger impact than others. I should also mention Landon Collins was not an elevation from the practice squad. Seems like Collins' time with the Giants, who knows how much longer it will last. He is considered more of a linebacker at this point. And we didn't even see a lot. I got to check this, but we didn't even see much of Tay Crowder today as far as I was concerned. Really, inside linebacker-wise, it was mostly like Jalen Smith and I guess Micah McFadden. It was not a whole lot of even Tay Crowder. So I guess, in terms of Landon Collins, there was really no need at all for him to be in there. But Matt Parrott was activated off of the injured list, and he, was in there a little bit. Same thing with Nick Gates, a little bit of playing time. Still no Evan Neal, still no Daniel Bellinger, and they're trying to make things work. But there were a couple. We'll talk about a couple of players that a couple of guys that you might not know that made contributions. But anyway, the Giants defense starts out and it does a pretty good job. On a 3rd and 11, it's a sack. It's a split sack between Pinnock and Dexter Lawrence. And so the Giants, do a good job. Defense goes 3 and out. Then there is a Wandell Robinson 9-yard catch for a first down that gets the Giants to about midfield. Saquon Barkley is a big part of this. And then the big play is on 2nd and 12 at the 42, Daniel Jones to Darius Slayton, 36 yards to the 6. There was an illegal formation penalty on the Giants that set them back just a bit. Eventually, it's second and goal at the 9, and Lawrence Cager scores the touchdown. The tight end from Daniel Jones, a 9-yard touchdown, gives the Giants a 7-0 lead. Now, Cager was on the roster against the Seahawks. If you remember, there was an overthrow by Daniel Jones to Cager. Definitely I guess you could say somewhat similar to Tanner Hudson, but Cager almost seems like he's more of a pass-catching tight end. Cager was with the Jets at different points in 2020 and this season, actually. But Cager gets a touchdown. So that was a practice squad elevation that comes through. And that's kind of what it is with the Giants. It doesn't necessarily matter who you are. I mean, there's certain positions where it does, but it's all about good coaching and just people filling in the gaps. And it's the system more than anything else that really helps the team. So then the Giants defense continues to do a really good job. Davis Mills and the Texans go 3 and out. The Texans offensive personnel was improved this week, where Brandon Cooks returns. He didn't do too much. Nico Collins comes back from injury. He got involved. But then the Giants offense, it kind of, this is what happens. They go up 7-0 and they kind of stall out a bit. This was the drive where you get that first Kenny Golladay incompletion and the Giants punted away. But again, you get another 3 and out by the Giant defense, really doing a very good job. The Giants moved the ball a little bit. Hodgins with a 15-yard catch. But unfortunately, on a 3rd and 2, Saquon Barkley only gets 1 yard. So now it's a 4th and 1 at the 36, and this gets very interesting. Now, Jack Anderson, now this was a player who the Giants claimed after the roster cuts. He was on the Eagles, and Jack Anderson is in there as an totally on the left side, completely an eligible receiver. And it's 4th and 1 at the 36. Now, the Giants were going to run a play. I don't know what they were going to do, but they were not trying to draw the Texans offside. They were going to try to run a play of some sort. Anderson jumps. He flinches. It's a false start. And Dable absolutely chews him out on the sideline. And it's good to see that. As a fan, you're frustrated. And it's like, I don't know what Jack Anderson was thinking there. It's a bad job by a player that really doesn't get in all that much. At all. And so that takes him out of field goal range. Because now it's 4th and 5 at the 40, and they punt, and Jamie Gillen punts into the end zone. So it's a net gain of 20 yards. So all in all, it works out terribly. And soon thereafter, the Texans get it right back. So that Anderson false start to me was a little bit of a turning point in the wrong direction. And Dameon Pierce starts to get involved. And this is where I believe Dexter Lawrence wasn't in on these plays. Dexter Lawrence is such an impactful player. Lawrence wasn't in, I believe, and Pierce just runs wild, including a 44-yard run to the Giant 19. But give credit to the defense as they're able to stop the Texans from there. And Fairbairn, the Texan kicker, 38-yard field goal good. And so now it's 7-3. Punt. The Giants' next drive would be a punt. Saquon Barkley, had his longest run of the day, a 27-yard run. It was an efficient day for Saquon. He didn't really. Again, 35 carries. It wasn't as if. Yeah, there wasn't a whole lot of big plays, but enough. 4 yards, 6 yards, things that you're looking for out of Saquon. But yeah, the Giants, they get to about midfield, and unfortunately. What happens here? Sorry. This is where they get to even beyond midfield. They get to the Texan 27, and this is where Wanda Robinson loses 5 yards. You get a no gain for Matt Breida, and then Daniel Jones gets sacked, and it takes him out of field goal range again. So a bad job by the Giants. We're in a couple instances, and this one was really bad, where you should at least be getting 3. You get nothing. So the Giants punt it again. A bad punt by Gillen, a really bad punt by Gillen. The Texans would get 1 first down, but the Giants do a nice job as they stop the Texans. The Texans punt it away. The Giants don't have great field position, but they're able to kind of get out of there. Luckily, the Giants then punt. And it kind of goes back and forth a little bit. The Texans kind of had halfway decent field position, but the Giants do a pretty good job. Jihad Ward gets a sack, which was pretty big, on a 3rd and 9 at the 47. And so the Texans punt, the Giants get the ball back. They try to make something happen, but they eventually, and I should mention that the drive before was where Golladay has that drop. And I don't think we saw him again. And so, honestly, the Giants, to me, I don't know why they didn't just take a knee. It was a little bit risky, but whatever. We go to the second half, and now the scoring starts to develop. The first 3 drives involve touchdowns. And luckily, the Giants were on for 2 of those. And it was a quick 5-play, 75-yard drive. And the reason why it was quick was because you have a Saquon 12-yard run. And then 3rd and 9 at the 46, Jones does a nice job of kind of hanging in there. He got hit pretty hard. And the timing was just off of the Texan defense, where Slayton comes back for the ball. The Texan defender misses him, and then it's off to the races. Slayton makes a couple of moves. He's down the sideline and gone. 54-yard touchdown for Darius Slayton. Definitely the play. When you think about this game, just in terms of a fun play, it was definitely the play of the game in that sense. So it's 14-3 Giants at this point, but it's Giant football, so it's got to be a little bit interesting. And, of course, the Texans have their best drive of the day coming off of that. And really, it was more with a 23-yard catch. Then Jordan Akins who was actually on the Giants training camp roster, and he makes a 17-yard catch. You get it to 2nd and 12, and it's Nico Collins just beating Fabian Moreau clean. 12-yard touchdown for Collins, and they respond, but the Giants respond as well, and that's a great job. It's a 12-play, 74-yard drive for the New York Giants, and this is where Wan'Dale Robinson does again get a third down conversion. An 11-yard catch for Wan'Dale Robinson. Saquon Barkley with a 13-yard run on a 3rd and 7. Big play from Jones to Hodgins, a 26-yard catch. Matt Breida getting involved. Daniel Jones a little bit, but it ends up in Saquon Barkley fittingly closes out the drive with a 2-yard touchdown run. Giants get back that 11-point lead. But the Texans' offense continues to move the ball well heading into the fourth quarter. And a big play was to Akins, a 46-yard reception on a 2nd and 16. That was unacceptable that they let that happen. But Akins gets it to 1st and goal at the 9. Dameon Pierce loses a yard. Nice tackle by Darnay Holmes. And then Pierce fumbles. It was a combination of Leonard Williams and Thibodeau. And it's recovered by Jalen Smith. And so that's really big. So they were about to respond again, but the Giants recover it right there. The Giants do, however, go 3 and out from there. And then the Texans get the ball back at midfield. So pretty good field position. There's 12 minutes left in the fourth quarter. You get a Nico Collins 13-yard catch. Brandon Cooks for 25. And there was a touchdown taken off the board. At 2nd and 15 at the 19. It was Mills to Cooks, but they called holding on Green of the Texans. And the next play is an interception by Dane Belton, intended for Philip Dorsett. And a nice job by Belton. Good pressure by Dexter Lawrence as well. And so the score remains 21-10. So those were big spots where the Texans offense really was starting to move. The second half, the Texans were offensively doing a lot better, but some key turnovers. And so now the Giants get the ball back. They start to get very, very conservative. I mean, they were conservative all game long, but extremely so here. It was a big first down by Daniel Jones on a scramble. 11-yard run for Daniel Jones. But the Giants do eventually punt it away. So the Texans get the ball back under 5 minutes, down by 11. And on this drive, the Texans also move the ball. More 22-yard catch. Collins 12-yard catch. And it was a prevent defense. It was, the Giants were kind of sitting back on defense, which I didn't love. And they were getting out of bounds as well. Dameon Pierce a 16-yard catch. And so they're moving the ball. There was a close play. It looked like there might have been a sack fumble where O'Shane Ximenez was involved, but it was overturned incomplete. It was a close play. It took them a while to review it, and they probably got it right. But the Giants' defense, it's kind of bend but don't break here, as eventually, with 2:22 left in the game, they settled for a 34-yard field goal for Fairbairn. Makes it 21-13. So then the Texans go onside kick. It's unsuccessful, and the Giants make it a little more interesting than you'd want it to, as the Texans burn all 3 timeouts. And at the 2-minute warning, the Giants kick a 49-yard field goal. So if Godot misses that, let's just say, Texans have pretty decent field position down 8, but he makes it. That basically seals it. But just because all Giant wins have to be by 1 score, the Texans do move it down the field pretty quickly. The Texans do get a 46-yard field goal, but it really doesn't matter. Another onside kick, and the Giants are able to recover it. Daniel Jones takes a knee, and the Giants win it 24-16. They improve to 7-2. They're now second in the NFC East, as the Dallas Cowboys lost to the Green Bay Packers in a game where the Cowboys should have won. They were up by 2 touchdowns, but the Packers come back, keep their postseason hopes alive, and so now the Giants, like I said, face the Lions, and now the Eagles still remain up top of the NFC East. As we record this, the Eagles have not played this week. They still play another NFC East team in Washington. It's in Philly. You'd expect the Eagles to win. We'll see what happens. But everything is kind of still there for the Giants, technically speaking. But with that being said, I like their chances of making the playoffs, but this Lion game goes a big way. Like I said, you win this Lion game, and I really think that you can really start talking about playoffs very freely and not worrying so much about, not making it. But let's just first get to this Lions game first. Take care of business there, because look, Detroit's been playing well. Lions offensively are kind of scary, but I think that you can score points against their defense. like very much so. But can the Giants have to have a killer instinct? That's going to be the difference here, because I think that the Giant defense might struggle a bit. Now with Jared Goff, like hopefully the Giants, it's kind of bend but don't break. Bend don't break. But I think that the Giants, if they can play a smart game, don't take penalties. Health seems to have been a good, this game they came out pretty healthy. It did come out that Dane Belton had X-rays. I'm not sure on what the specific. He seemed fine, so maybe it's nothing, but something to monitor. But I think the Giants are relatively healthy, but you never know what can happen. Look at what happened to Xavier McKinney. But again, Giants 7-2. They win off the bye, which you always want, and now they stay home, and they will face the red-hot Detroit Lions. So you can't take them easy, and this will be a challenging game, but I think it's one that the Giants can certainly win.